Yep, my name is Dan Voles, and we will be going over the MyTax kind of changes and just things to remember that may have changed over the last year that you may or may not have seen. So the first thing we're going to do is kind of follow up with Jane, some of those ST-1 updates, also followed along with MyTax Illinois. And the first thing is line 2B was added to deduct the collected local grocery tax on the Schedule A. So if you go into MyTax Illinois, and open that up and go to the Schedule A, you'll see line 2 be added there, and it'll have verbiage about the local grocery taxes to be able to deduct that off. So you're not paying tax on top of tax for that. The alcohol liquor purchases page has been updated to not only have the alcohol liquor purchases, but also include the taxable motor fuel receipts. So now there'll be two things on there that would need to be answered if they apply to your business. If they don't apply to your business or your client's business, you can just hit next and go past it, and it'll just leave it at 0. The next thing is lines 5C and 5D were added for any local grocery taxes to calculate that. If you have a single site, so you don't have multiple storefronts or changing locations, those lines will be added to the ST1. Whereas if you have multi-sites, it'll be added to the ST2. So it's in different places depending on your particular situation. Line 16A has been repurposed. So now instead of it being the manufacturer's purchase credit line, which most people, you can't earn it, you can't spend it at this point because that has sunset, that was repurposed for the credit for tax paid prior to 1/1/2025 on items sold at retail at the end of the lease because of those leasing changes. The next thing I'm going to talk about, and it's kind of going back to what Craig was talking about, was that returning citizen credit. Beginning in 2026, businesses that hire an employee who qualifies will be able to request the returning citizen credit through their MyTax Illinois account. A returning citizen is an Illinois citizen who is formally incarcerated in an Illinois correctional facility. This is a logon application, so the business that is requesting the returning citizen credit has to have a MyTax Illinois account to be able to apply. So if your client or you don't have a MyTax Illinois account already, it's a good way to see letters. There's a lot of good options for having a MyTax Illinois account. So this is another one to be able to apply for that returning citizen credit. So assuming we have a MyTax account, we've signed in, the first thing we're going to see is the summary tab, and the summary tab is where everything is located. All those different, if you have multiple tax types, each of those is going to be listed here. So for the returning citizen credit, we are specifically looking for the business income tax panel. It'll say business income tax in the upper kind of left-hand corner there, and have a list of your information. This one's been redacted for security issues. And then over to the right of that, we see that white panel that has 3 options where it says manage payments and returns, respond to a notice, and then finally that third one is view more account options. And that is where we are going to need to click to apply for the returning citizen credit. Once you get in there, there will be several different boxes, different panels that you'll see. The one we're specifically looking for is the account options. That's where, if you're interested in contributing to Illinois Gives, that link's right there. If you need to make any estimated payments for the business, you can do that there. And then finally, that third option is apply for a returning citizen credit. Now, one thing to note is if you went into your MyTax account after this webinar and went in there, that link's not going to be there. That's not going to show up until 2026. So after the new year, it will be in there to be able to apply. So once we click that, the next page that we're going to see is titled credit for wages paid to returning citizens application. This is a pretty simple page. You just need to enter the period ending date for the wages of when those wages were paid. Once you put that in there, you can either type it, you can click on the little calendar icon, and that'll pop up a calendar, and you can manually put that in there through there. Whichever way, it doesn't matter, just what your personal preference is. And then down below that is you are applying for tax year. That will automatically fill out once you've entered that period ending date above that. So that's pretty easy to fill out. Once that's all correct, we're going to go kind of down in the bottom right hand corner there, and we're going to hit next. Once we hit next, we get an information screen. Now this information screen, I would stop and look over it because it gives you specific details on who applies, how much credit can be taken based on the qualified wages, and that's all there for your information. If you've done it several times and you need to go past it, but I would say the first time you get in there, it's a good read to be able to have a good overview of what applies and what doesn't. So once you've read through that, you can hit next. And here we will have is where we start being able to actually add those records. Now, the nice thing about this is if you have several returning citizens who you're all applying for credit for, you can just keep hitting add a record and you'll be able to add it and submit it all at once. You don't have to go through the process every time that you need to add a single returning citizen. You can add that several at a time and be able to do that. Now, if and you can always return to it if you have additional ones that you need to and go through this process again. But the first thing we have to do is hit add a record. When we hit add a record, it's going to have a whole litany of things that you have to do. You can see the red dots there, all show things that are required. These are things that you would expect to be able to have to do. We need to know the returning citizen's name. We need to know their IDOC number. Now, the IDOC number is formatted as a letter and 5 digits. This is not something that the Department of Revenue has. So the business would have to get that information from the returning citizen, as well as the next couple of questions. Which correctional facility were they released from, and when were they released? We need all that information. And the rest of them have to do with the actual dates of payments and different things. How much, once you kind of get down past the last qualifying wages line there that has the red dot saying it's required, everything after that will automatically calculate for you. So you don't have to worry about the rest of that screen. But again, that IDOC number is the thing that really helps us identify that, because IDOC will send us a list of people who qualify. And without that IDOC number or a proper one, we won't be able to match that up, and then the credit won't be given to you, and that can cause delays being able to get that credit. So once all of that is completed, we're going to hit next. Now, above that, you can add or delete there in the upper right hand corner there. It has the add or delete links, so you can do that as necessary. So if we hit next, the next thing that we are going to look at is the certification questions. There are 4 questions, and they each have a piece of information to show that yes, they are certified. These returning citizens and their wages are qualified. And they have to do back to that informational screen. But you just read through those. All of 4 of those questions need to be answered in the affirmative, and be able to answer those yes. If any of them are answered no, it won't let you submit. So they do need to be answered yes, and realistically answered yes based on the wages in the system. So after that, we're going to hit submit. Once we get to that, it is going to pop up a box. This is a common box throughout MyTax. it is the confirmation inside MyTax. It requires the password that you use to sign in to the MyTax account. This acts as a signature that you are making this request. So you enter that password and hit OK. Once that is through and that goes through, you will see this confirmation page. Now, this confirmation page is one and done, meaning that once you get off this page, you cannot get back to this particular thing. Now, you may be able to go back and find that request and get that to get the information. But if it's something that you need for your records, because that confirmation number in that kind of that first line that's not bolded has a long confirmation number. This one's redacted partly, but that confirmation number will help you later on when you're having to ask questions, and it helps us make sure that we're talking about the exact same thing, and that to help quickly get your question answered. So if you need that for your records, down below there it says printable confirmation. You just click that and it will open it up to a PDF where you can actually print it out and put it in a physical record, or if you want to just save it on your computer, you can save it there for your records or your client records. Once we're done with that, we can hit OK, and we will be done with the submission part. But just some additional information on the returning citizen credit when we apply through MyTax. That confirmation page is not considered a credit certificate. That is just an application to request the credit. So that's still got to be processed. That's still got to go through. If you had multiple returning citizens that you were applying for, there will be a separate credit certificate or correspondence for each individual returning citizen that went through that application. If a returning citizen meets the guidelines for the credit, that credit certificate for the returning citizen will be received by correspondence, and that will be in the MyTax Illinois account. So in that letters or messages tab, it'll show up there. The credit certificate will include the taxable year the credit must be claimed and the amount of the credit that has been approved. So you can have that for your record. So if you were to use it on the taxes there, you'd have that for your records. So if we question it, you could always respond with a copy of that. If you have any additional questions, please visit our website at tax.illinois.gov or email us at rev.returningcitizeninquiry@illinois.gov. They're going to be able to answer any specific questions that you have through that processing area, and make sure to reference that confirmation number provided in the confirmation page there. One question we get a lot is like, how can I get access to my client's information? And the best way to do that is through third-party access. Third-party access allows a user's representative to access, to view or act on behalf of the user in MyTax Illinois. This is the best practice. It helps in a lot of ways. One, it's a single sign-on. If you're an accountant and you have all of this set up, you don't have to remember a million passwords to try to get into every single one of your accounts. And the other part is it gives the actual taxpayer the ability to go in because they have their own account and they can go in and review and see and do things. They can make payments if they need to. So having that separated. So we're going to kind of go through that process as a reminder. One, you need to create an account, and that's really for both. Both sides need to create an account. Then the client needs to allow third-party access. The representative will request access through their separate MyTax Illinois account. And then the representative access is either approved or denied based on the setup of the client. So to create an account, if you don't have it, if your client doesn't have it, you go to my.illinois.gov you'll have the picture of the old state capitol, and just to the right, that's where you enter your username and password. It says login. Just to the bottom of that black box, it says sign up. If you don't have an account, that is where you're going to need to sign up. It will have a series of questions that you got to answer. If it's for an individual, so your client's getting that information and they've never received a letter from us, and especially haven't received one in the last 90 days, they will need to request a letter ID to create that. So it's a non-log-on request. As long as they've filed with us before and we have an active address on file, they can go to mytax.illinois.gov. It's the first panel that you see, and it says individuals, and it looks like the one on the screen. And then that third bullet point says request a letter ID. You click in there, it'll ask for a social security number, a PIN number, and some additional information to be able to get that sent out. That does go through the mail, and can take 7 to 10 business days to get to that. So it's not an immediate process, but they can get that and we can get that in. And that's specifically for individuals. If it's for a business, as long as you can answer as long as that client can answer all the questions, they can get in that day. It's individuals that require that letter ID. In the upper, once you're signed in and you go all through that, in the upper right hand corner, it's going to say welcome. It'll have the name of the person whose account it is, when they last logged in, and just under that is a link that says manage my profile. This is where we're going to need to click to make sure that the client has it set up to allow third-party access so the representative can do what they need to do to get that set up and make that connection. So once they click manage my profile, across the top, there's the profile, action center, and more tabs, and more has 3 dots after it. So you just click on that and it will open it up, and there will be several tabs there, but the one or several panels, I'm sorry. The one we're specifically looking at is the access management panel. It says that across the top. And then in that panel, there are 4 different options to access. You can manage your own access. You can add access to an existing tax account. You can manage third-party access, and that's the one we're interested in. And then finally, if that client's out of business or whatever and they need to delete their profile, they can do that there as well. But we're specifically going to look at that manage third-party access. So go ahead, we're going to click there. And then it's going to say third-party access. Anybody who has third-party access will be listed in that logons. This person doesn't have anybody because they have not allowed anybody to have third-party access. So to change that, that client, the person who is going to have access requested to them for their information, next to where it says allowed, you need to click on the no. It's a link. When you click on no, it is going to ask you, are you sure that you want to allow third-party logons? If that's the action that wants to be taken, hit yes. And then that changes that over to allowed yes, and it gives us 2 other things. So it's saying default access third party, that's what we need. And then down below it will say default account access. This default account access shows what kind of access the person requesting will automatically have. So I think one thing to note is full access is the only one that would allow you to respond to notices on behalf of that client. Everything else limits that information. But there's other ones like file, which would only allow you to file a return. It wouldn't allow you to make any payments. File and pay, which allows you to do both. Pay, which only allows you to pay. There's a view, so you can just look at it, or the full access. And if you're acting fully on behalf of that taxpayer, that's the one that you're going to need. So once that's all set up on the client side, we're going to go to the representative side, the person who's going to be requesting that access, that third-party access. They will need to sign into their MyTax account, and up in the upper right-hand corner where we were before in the client's one, this is just yours, hit manage my profile, hit more, and we're going to be in that same access management, except we're not hitting manage third-party access. we're hitting add access to an existing tax account. This is how we make that link, is that add access to an existing tax account. And one point of note, if you have a sole proprietor and they didn't request access to their individual account at the very beginning when they set up their MyTax account and they want to see both their business side and the individual, they would go into their own here and add access, and they can request access to their individual account. So once we hit add access, it's going to have a drop down menu and you have to choose which tax type. So you do have to go through and choose each tax type individually, but we're going to use that drop down menu. This one's asking for withholding. The withholding, it's going to ask for the FEIN plus that 3-digit sequence number, the account zip code, and then the last payment amount that we have on file. So this is for withholding. If it was for an individual, it would require a letter ID that the taxpayer had given you that had been issued in the last 90 days from IDOR. Typically, it's not a collections letter. Typically, it's going to start with CN, a series of X's, and then a long string of numbers and characters. So once you go through there, you're going to hit submit. Assuming that everything is set up correctly, you will receive an email that says that it's been approved, and you'll know that you can go in there, and the next time you sign into your MyTax Illinois account as the representative, you'll have a new tab that shows who you have connection to, and you can just click into there, and anything you have access to, you can go ahead and access for them. The next thing we're going to look at, a really common question we get is, how do I submit a power of attorney for an individual or a business if you're under audit? Any number of reasons why I submit a power of attorney. There are 4 main ways to be able to submit a power of attorney to the Department of Revenue. One is MyTax Illinois, and this is the one that we promote and push because it's the most safe and secure to make sure that that information gets to us and we can get to it quickly. The next one is the email option. You can email it through rev.poa@illinois.gov, but just a note, sending information via email is not considered secure, and that's why we promote our MyTax option more. You can fax it, but we'd ask that you don't include a cover page and you don't combine multiple POAs. And then finally, you can mail it. There is a 5th option if you want to come to one of our walk-in options and offices and just hand it in, you can do that. Whatever option you choose, we typically say that it's going to take about 3 business days to get on the account. The advantage of the MyTax or the email option is that once that is on, we will actually email you and let you know that it is on that account. So to do that as a non-login option, we're going to go down to the additional services. One of the easiest ways to do this is when you're at MyTax Illinois, there's a keyword like filter, and if you just start typing in power of attorney, it'll limit it. You can find it really easily. We will accept the Form Illinois 2848, IL56, and the multi-state power of attorney. And you can upload those PDFs of those using this link. So it's that second link under additional services. Once you're in there, you have to choose whether it's the 2848, the IL56 fiduciary, or the multi-state power of attorney. So you just choose, that helps us know which form we're looking at when we go to process it. Then you put in the primary taxpayer or the business name in there. And then you choose whether it's an FEIN or a social security number. It'll open the correct fields based on which you choose. If it's an FEIN, it'll just ask for that ID number and ask you to confirm it. If it's a social security number, a secondary information below that will open up and it'll say, is this for a joint return? So if you have somebody who's married filing joint, you can do that as one Illinois 2848 or power of attorney. You just need to put yes and then put in the spouse's information and their SSN and confirm that. Then down at the bottom, you need to enter your email address and the name of the person submitting it. So if you're submitting it, that's for your information. This makes sure that we have a contact person. If something goes wrong with that power of attorney, or if it's been approved, we can respond and let you know. Next, you'll need to add the PDF attachment to the power of attorney by clicking the add link there. Submit a single PDF, doesn't need a cover sheet, and only one client or spouse per submission. You can find those forms at tax.illinois.gov. And you can find the 2848 and the IL56 at our website. If you're using the multi-state power of attorney, that goes through mtc.gov or the Multi-State Tax Commission. They're the ones that manage, and that we will process it and put it on the account, but we don't create the form. We don't have it on our website. Once all of that's in, we're going to hit next. And then it'll show that it's ready. We can hit submit. Here, we don't put a password in because it's a non-login, so we'll need to put our email, confirm the email, and hit OK. And then it'll get to one of those one and done confirmation screens. It has a way to print the confirmation. It has a way to actually print the request, so you can have that for your records, save it if you need to, put it in a physical document. One thing to notice, we will not email the confirmation or that to you. So if you need to save it, now is the time to save it. The next thing that we're going to look at is direct file. Direct file closed with the IRS on October 23rd of 2025, so no more submittals for the tax year 2024. And currently there's no plan to reopen it for tax year 2025. So Illinois was part of it as of last year, but we won't be doing it this year because the IRS isn't doing it next year either. I do apologize. Just some reminders on the ST-1, ST-2 for remote retailers and marketplace facilitators. In August, remote retailers and marketplace facilitators could update their locations as part of the process of filing their ST-2. In addition, remote retailers and marketplace facilitators were able to complete the ST-2 in a list rather than individual tabs. As long as they were, and if they were active registered changing locations, it would be listed first on the ST-2. And changing locations with non-zero entries will be added as registered locations when processing the return and will appear in the following months. Once the previous ST2 is completed, the next page is a summary of the completed branch locations. They can review that. Non-marketplace facilitators or remote retailers will not have these changes, and it just remained the same that it always did. Maintaining locations. One of the things that was added for maintain locations, I think back about the same time, was there was a starting date. So if you had multiple locations that you were adding, you could put a starting date in that field and it would apply it to all of them instead of having to add it for every separate one. Retrieving an ST-556, view all returns. As of August, you could retrieve, there was removed. There was a link that said retrieve ST-556, 556 LSEs. It was removed because view all returns now holds the most recent 1,000 returns. And you could actually, out of that, you could look up that return number by clicking search and it will immediately come up instead of having to wait overnight. One thing that happened back in June or July when you signed into MyTax, we now require that once a year you confirm your contact information, and that just makes sure that we have the most recent contact information on file. So when we go into January, because that'll be a new year, the first time you sign into MyTax Illinois, it will ask you to confirm that information again, and then it won't ask you to do it until 2027. So that is our contact information. If you have questions about specific accounts, information, feel free to call our general line. We have a lot of people who are waiting on the phones to be able to answer questions. You can call our 1-800 line, the 127 number, our business hotline. So if you have more business related questions, that's a good one to look in. If you need information specifically for MyTax Illinois and you need help there, either registering or with a specific function that you're trying to do, you can do that to rev.mytaxhelp@illinois.gov. And you can also find information at our website at tax.illinois.gov for research purposes. Or if you want to go specifically to mytaxillinois.gov, feel free to do that there. We have people there who answer questions through any of our email boxes, and our phone lines are usually open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day except for holidays and weekends. So thank you for your time.